It is game day. Another college football weekend, and there's some massive games today. And this is where we're going to figure out who is who. We're going to figure out, who's overranked. Today will be part of the piece of that puzzle. Tonight at 7:30, we have two massive games on ABC. On ABC, you're actually going to have Georgia and Alabama getting together in Athens. And then over on, I believe, CBS or NBC, I can't remember. I need to go look that up. Oregon at Penn State, two massive games. Of course, at 3:30, you have LSU and Ole Miss getting together, as well as some games that will kick off in the next hour and a half. And for us Clemson fans, for anyone who's watching on my other channel right now, of course, I'm a Clemson fan. How can you tell? Clemson is off today. Hopefully today we will not be a few plays away, but who knows? At least our anxiety will get a break. First, welcome to the show. Now, I'm simulcasting on two different channels. One, I'm on the Clemson football channel that I have. So if you're watching right now, I'm going to politely ask you to go to my other channel, which is called Another College Football Podcast. In fact, I'm putting the link below to Another College Football Podcast, and you can go check it out there. So check out Another College Football Podcast, and I'm going to drop it in the chat section as well. Go over there and subscribe. A lot of people's finding that channel and really liking it. It's Fox for Penn State and Oregon. Sorry about that. I appreciate you correcting me there, Bailey BP, putting that link to this same video, but it's on the other channel. I hope you'll subscribe there. Anyway, let's by the way, it's free. So like if you're watching, why wouldn't you subscribe? Anyway. All right, let's talk about college football today. I mentioned the big games. I actually did a preview for all of them. We have some solid games coming up in just an hour and a half. Let's talk about last night, what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. Florida State gave up 46 points. 46 points to the University of Virginia last night. And they lost 46-38 in double overtime. Both quarterbacks threw for a combined 5 interceptions. And I was impressed that Virginia came out 3-1. They were 3-1 going into the game, 2-0 in the ACC. I guess from what I'm understanding is when they lost to NC State by 4 points, that did not count as a conference game. That's what I'm taking away from this, because right now on ESPN, they're showing that they're 2-0 in conference. So right now, the Virginia Cavaliers are 2-0 in the ACC. They play Florida State, a team that what made everyone believe that Florida State, I wasn't saying officially back, but they were much improved, was absolutely dragging Alabama in week 1. What they've done in the past 2 weeks against two really bad football teams, I was not counting that, folks. The only thing I could say was they were beating bad teams bad, and that's what you're supposed to do. Week 1 was impressive, even on this side of the coin, on this side of this Virginia game. That was extremely impressive. So I'm not going to overlook that. If you overlook it, I don't know what a good win for you is. But Florida State was down 14-0 in this game. They scored 21 points in the second quarter. But neither team could stop turning over the ball. And the thing that I came away from with this game, neither team has a defense. One team gives up 38, the other gives up 46. So credit the Virginia Cavaliers. Credit them for coming into this game and winning it. Congratulations to former Clemson offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator Tony Elliott on this win. He hasn't had the easiest time there. I mean, of course, Virginia has been in the crapper for a while. Of course, they had the tragedy a few years ago. That's really awful. So that sets a program back. And then we get into Virginia and just being Virginia. But they came out and they beat Florida State last night. Florida State was only a 6.5-point favorite coming into this game, and I was kind of scratching my head. And for some of you going, well, why'd you scratch your head? Well, remember, Clemson was a 17.5-point favorite last week against Syracuse, and they lost by double digits. So anyway, it is gambling, though. That's basically the underlying truth of a spread. But Florida State last night, their offense put up 38 points and they still lost. So what that lets me know is that yes, Virginia came out, did what they did. They were consistent, but neither team has a defense. And that should be the takeaway here. Got a bunch of people getting into the live chat here. Got Bailey BP. Got, let me see, who else? Keith Lauder, Big Load, The Weakest Link, Nicholas Powell, Harriet Dewan. It's good to see all of y'all in here. By the way, if you're watching this on my Clemson football channel, I'm actually simulcasting on my new channel, another college football podcast where I talk about college football as a whole. The channel's growing. In fact, I had my most successful video this week for this brand new channel. And it was on Virginia and Florida State, the preview for it. And it's still getting a bunch of views. So I'm going to put the link to this video, but on that channel in this chat section. So you can go check it out. I'm asking you, if you like what I do, I hope you'll subscribe to both channels if you haven't done that already. And the next thing I'm going to throw out there, not being a jerk, just saying this, if you don't like what I'm doing, why are you watching? I wouldn't do it. I'd be like, no, I'd rather go count the hairs on my toes than watch this guy. And I mean that. So I hope that you'll go subscribe and pass it along to all your friends, your neighbors, and pass it along on the forums and on Facebook, so on. That's how the channel grows. If you like what I'm doing, I appreciate it. I'm glad you're here. Got Travis Hamrick in here as well. Got 904 Hurricane. Good to see you, my friend. All right, let's get in here. We talked about Virginia beating Florida State last night. That was a big win. Let's talk about who kicks off in the top 25 at 12 o'clock. So today on ESPN, Georgia Tech travels up to Winston-Salem to play Wake Forest. Georgia Tech 4-0. They're playing against a 2-1 Wake Forest team. And I mean, Georgia Tech's a 13.5-point favorite coming into this game. The number one thing that you have to look at here is, will Georgia Tech, since they've come out of this win with Clemson, will they be focused for the rest of the games that they have to play until they have to play Georgia at the very end of the season? And you're like, Brian, why does that matter? Well, let me tell you why. They started off with Colorado. Now, I know Colorado's not amazing, but that was one of the first games of the college football season. It is Colorado, and all the publicity around Deion Sanders losing the talent. People wanted to see how Colorado would respond after losing a lot of talent that we've been hearing about nonstop for 3 years. And Georgia Tech won the game by a touchdown. But of course, we know what they did to beat Clemson 24-21 in a walk-off field goal as time was expiring. It was an NFL kick. Last week, he played Temple and won 45-24. Listen to this stretch here. How underwhelming it is. You're at Wake Forest. You're playing Virginia Tech. You're at Duke. You play Syracuse. That game's get a little tricky. At NC State, questionable there. At Boston College, Pitt, and then you finish off with Georgia in Atlanta, 3:30 ABC, Thanksgiving weekend. You see what I'm saying? These games are not overwhelming. It would be easy to think that you could mail in this performance. That's how you'll get upset if you're Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech could easily end up, I say easily, but pretty easy compared to others, end up in the ACC championship if they'll just stay focused. And today is one of those games against Wake Forest. Can you stay focused? Nobody is beating down the door to go to Wake Forest. You can get tickets to this game that kicks off in about an hour and a half for about $20, $25, according to where you sit. So this is a yawner. And this game is a game that Wake Forest, a team that's just getting settled in with their semi-new head coach, Well, he is I'm sorry, he is brand new. Dickert is, I think that's his last name, out of Washington State. This is his first year, so forgive me for misspeaking there. But this is a team that barely beat Kennesaw State. They did wax Western Carolina, and they played NC State pretty well, but they lost by 10 points. No one is beating down the door to go see Wake Forest play football. So right now, this would be a game that Georgia Tech could take their eyes off the prize, and it cost them the prize. So that'll be interesting to see how Georgia Tech plays. Brent Key, hopefully he's got them even kill. Let them know today is the only game that matters. Today is the only game that matters. That's all that matters. Clemson's done. Colorado's done. Georgia is so far away in football time, it's ridiculous. Next up at 12 o'clock, we have Southern Cal playing in Champaign, Illinois against Illinois. USC is 4-0. And then Illinois is coming off of a butt whipping by Indiana. Indiana beat them so bad. I never saw that coming. I thought that this would be like a 10-point game and that maybe Illinois would win the game. In fact, I said I believe that Illinois would win the game. Indiana, for anyone who was not paying attention, Indiana beat them 63-10. Kirk Cignetti, that's one thing I can say about Kirk Cignetti. When he took over the job at Indiana, his number one priority was to win, and is to win. And this is a lesson for us Clemson fans and anyone else who is arguing about the portal and this, that, and the other. The portal has affected the game. We know this. That's a dust statement. But you have to be able to coach. You can go raid the portal all you want to, bring in every player that you feel like you need and pay them handsomely. But if you can't coach yourself out of a wet paper bag with a slight tear in it, you will win games, but you're not going to win big games. Consistently, you will not win. You may get an upset, but you're not going to win consistently. I'll put it that way. But when you take someone who is recruiting well, who uses the portal to supplement deficiencies on the team, and then you can coach well, holy smokes, you'll get a 63-10 win. That's what you'll get. I don't think Illinois is that bad. I think that Indiana, they're not a front runner for the national championship, but I think that Cignetti can coach that well, and he did it. So today they're playing against Southern Cal, a team that is 4-0. A lot of people's looking at Lincoln Riley going, bro, what's up, man? What's up? Team looked awful last year. Sorry, y'all, my eyes itching right now, and I don't know. It's just, anyway, hopefully it's not pink eye. I shouldn't joke about that. I mean, they beat the crap out of Missouri State. They beat the crap out of Georgia Southern, their former head coach. Is that Georgia Southern? They went to Purdue and won. And then they beat Michigan State. So before we say that Southern Cal is back and everything, sure, they're not. They're playing Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, at Oregon, and then UCLA to close out the year. They have a long road ahead of them, and I'm not going to believe anything good about Southern Cal until they actually do it. This game, Southern Cal is a 6.5-point favorite. Next up at 12 o'clock, this is a very interesting game. My memory serves me correct. This is the first time both of these schools have met one another, but I believe their commonality is Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz, I want to say we know he coached at Notre Dame. I want to say he coached at Arkansas as well. I need to go look that up. That's right off the top of my head. Notre Dame comes into this game as a 4.5-point favorite. They started off their season with 2 high-profile games. At Miami, lost it by 3. Texas A&M came in, they lost it by 1. So they are, I would say, 4 points away from being undefeated, but that math actually doesn't work because that would be a tie. If they just won by 1 point in each game, they're 6 points away from being undefeated. But they lost those games. They just beat Purdue. They're 1-2. They're playing at Arkansas. Arkansas is a deceivingly odd team. I was about to say good. It doesn't really make sense to say good. They have a lot of talent, but they're 2-2. Or they have a solid amount of talent, but they're 2-2. Their quarterback has already thrown for almost 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Who has their losses been to? They lost by 6 points at Ole Miss. And then this past weekend, they just lost by 1 point at Memphis. This Arkansas team can very well beat Notre Dame. And this is not, to use kind of a weird term, this is not a sexy game. It's 12 o'clock on ABC. Notre Dame, in everyone's head, should win this ball game. They're only a 4.5-point favorite coming into the game. The question is, can Marcus Freeman keep his guys focused? Like, boom. This team is not Purdue, right? This team, the correct answer is no. Arkansas can definitely beat you. Arkansas can beat a lot of teams, and they can lose to a lot of teams. It's just according how the wind's blowing. That'll be an interesting game to watch at 12 o'clock on ABC. Next up, 12:45, a very weird game. A very weird game for a lot of reasons. Utah State travels to Vanderbilt. Number 18 Vanderbilt, 4-0 Vanderbilt. You can get tickets for like $20 here. If you're in the Vandy area, had the hankering to spend very little money and go over and see a college football game. Diego Pavia, my biggest concern for Diego Pavia coming into the season is that they were not going to be caught off guard by what he did last year. Even as he was progressing through the season after they beat Alabama, you know that as people were preparing, teams were preparing and scheming for Vanderbilt, they had this notion in the back of their mind and probably at the front of their mind, this is Vanderbilt, they're going to fall apart. And though they did not win 10 games, they did some damage, almost beat Texas. And I've just thought that, hey, they have so much, the college football has so much film on Diego Pavia. He's not going to slip through the cracks on this one. They're sitting at 4-0 right now. Now, granted, they played Charleston Southern, but they did beat the crap out of Virginia Tech. I know they're bad, but beating Charleston Southern bad versus beating Virginia Tech bad is different. They went into South Carolina. I know Lenora Sellers got hurt. I know that. But they were putting it on South Carolina. Like, South Carolina was having a very difficult time, even while Sellers was in the game. They won 31-7. And then they played Georgia State, beat them 70-21. Do you notice something? They're scoring 30-plus points per game. And if you average that out, you're probably sitting around 45-ish, right off the top of my head, 40 to 50 points per game. But when they played a decent South Carolina team, even with Sellers in, they were a problem. And now you have Utah State, a team that's 3-1, nothing amazing coming in. This is a really good way for them to get to 5-0 because their next 4 games is terrible. They play at Alabama. They play LSU in Nashville, Missouri in Nashville, and then they're at Austin, Texas on November the 1st. So this next run is going to be really, really tough. Then after that, Auburn, who is up and down, you don't know. Got Kentucky, who knows. And then you're at Tennessee at the very end of the year for the annual rivalry. Annual rivalry. Annual rivalry. If my face droops, call my wife, please. Get in here, say hello to a couple of people who's just joined us on the live show. Got Broski Bear in here, Charles Johnson, the Ohio Podcast. See, I tried to say it fast, Ohio Podcast. Yeah. Stephen P. Holtz was at Arkansas. That's right. I thought so. From 79 to 83. And then Noah Denton in here. Noah, it's good to see everyone in here. Real quick, I want to answer this question from the Ohio Podcast. Ohio. What a game last night. What are your thoughts on Tony Elliott as a fan? As a Clemson fan? Very, very good question. I think that Tony Elliott is He lives in Clemson infamy. I think where I pump the brakes on Tony Elliott being a brilliant offensive coordinator is when he and Jeff took the job at South Florida. Jeff was the one who created the scheme, drew up the plays, and then Tony would call them, right? And a lot of Clemson fans get red-faced when you start talking about Tony Elliott and Jeff departing from one another. They don't want to accept that Jeff was a major part of the success just as much as Tony calling plays. We remember once Jeff was gone, things kind of got weird at Clemson. You could talk about DJ being the quarterback and so on, but there's mixed feelings about Tony. Tony took over the job up there. I will say this, that unless it was just for the money and just wanting to have coaching experience and maybe people giving you leeway because, oh, it is Virginia and they haven't been good in a while, except for a few seasons sprinkled in here and there. I think that Tony, I think that if I were Tony, I wouldn't have taken the Virginia job. It's one of those jobs that is just really, really tough. And to see him persevere, I mean, he still has a whole season ahead of him. The wheels can come off of this thing. And I said this to a Virginia fan this week, Eric, when they asked me, hey, why are you picking Florida State to win this game? For everybody's underestimating Virginia. And my response to them was, hey, prove us wrong. That's the whole thing with any team who's had success or had historic failure. If you start to hit a little stride in success and people are doubting you, it's because you probably have a history of losing. And every time you started to win a little bit, the wheels fell off. We saw that with Syracuse in the last years of Dino Babers. And I mean, I have the receipts for that one where Syracuse fans were like, hey, this is a different team. And then they lose 5 in a row. Prove me wrong. Virginia, they took a step in the right direction yesterday, proving us wrong. They can't go wet the bed against some odd football team. I say odd, that's like it would be odd for them to lose to after winning last night. You've already got a loss. Well, you can't have a perfect season. Well, that's already out the window. So bye-bye excuse that's commonly used by people just to, I don't know, rebut for the heck of it. But excuse me. But I think that hopefully he's hitting his stride. Hopefully he's hitting his stride and looking inside. Last night the play, they did really well, but Florida State also did a really bad job. So it was like it's balancing that, but really, really good question. Matthew Coker said, what's up? Just subscribe to your other channel today. Enjoy the show. Keep it up, sir. Thank you, Matthew Coker. I'm about to dive back into games. Just want to let everybody know who is watching me. I am simulcasting on my new channel, Another College Football Podcast, where I talk about college football as a whole. So it's a brand new channel. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you will. I have the link. I'm going to drop the link here in the live chat, and it's below in the description of the video. The reason I ask you so boldly to subscribe is, first, if you're watching me all the time, why wouldn't you subscribe? And I don't mean that rude. I'm just asking, why wouldn't you subscribe and why wouldn't you pass it along? It's free. Next up, if you're watching me and you really don't like what I'm doing, folks, we only have so much time on this planet. I would rather do anything than sit and watch someone I don't like. So if you watch me all the time, even if you like to argue with me, I hope you'll subscribe and pass it along. Go check out the other channel and subscribe that. Okay, let's dive back in to subscribe there. Sorry. I have 60 thoughts in one mouth and it's all colliding into a all right, today 3:30, top 25 on CBS. Top 25 matchup. Well, not really. We have Ohio State and Washington. Ohio State and Washington meeting in Seattle. A few years ago, this would have been a really good game. And to Washington's credit, they're 3-0. Ohio State's an 8.5-point favorite coming to the game. But let's talk about who Washington has beat up until this point. Colorado State, 38-21. UC Davis, 70-10. And Washington State, 59-24. Ohio State comes into the game with First win of the year, Texas. No offense, Eric. Probably one of the most overrated games that we've seen in quite a while. It was on paper, it was historic. In reality, you had probably one of the most overhyped quarterbacks in years, and we all know this. We all know it when it's happening in real time. Still, we buy into it. What we should be doing is going, look, I have no problem with Arch Manning or the Manning family. But let's see how he plays first before we anoint him the second coming of the Manning family, right? You got to remember when Arch Manning, just side note, when Arch Manning walks into a family event with, his dad, his uncles, and everything, he's not even the third most important member of his family. Most big time college football players that you see on TV right now, the vast majority of them, they are the most important person that walks into their family events, family reunions, because they're like the stuff. That's not so with Arch Manning. And that's very different versus a lot of these athletes that are treated like kings by their families, because no one else in the family has done anything like it. Maybe they went and played D3 ball, D2, something like that. But, you have someone who's a starter at Ohio State or Texas, and they're like the big name in the family because they have NFL hopes, not Arch Manning. And so looking at that game, it was really big on paper, and it was really good for the opening weekend of college football, but have Ohio State with that win. I look at Ohio State, and I have a really difficult time seeing them losing this game. I really do. I just, I mean, if you're looking at Julian saying, I mean, he's 779 yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He has one of the best wide receivers to play the game in quite a while. Jeremiah Smith, 20 receptions, 315, 3 touchdowns. Playing. They should win this game. At the same time, we have LSU at Ole Miss, 3:30 on ABC. Us Clemson fans were thinking about the LSU loss, which that's the least of our worries now. If they only lost that LSU game, sure, it would have been, ugh. We hated to lose that game at night in Death Valley, but losing at home for Clemson is just, well, another Saturday now. Another Saturday now. That's it. You'll pronounce it right one day, brother. After all that speech therapy, I'm going to spend a lot of money on speech therapy. Speech therapy. What's up with the rule change? FSU touchdown ruled incomplete after a great fingertips catch. He just didn't have full control of the ball. I've seen them overturn much less controversial catches than that. And if they overturn those other ones, they definitely would overturn that one. Go check out the touchdown pass against Clemson with LSU. The ball moved just a touch, and the guy really had it. They called it incomplete. Clemson would have lost by 14. South Carolina against Virginia Tech. Nick Harbor, and I'm no Gamecock fan, caught an incredible pass. Ball moved just a touch. So compared to that catch last night, those were definitely catches. They ruled them incomplete. I knew as soon as I saw it that they were going to call it incomplete. Yeah, that one to me was, I pretty much knew it was going to be incomplete. We look at LSU, we look at Ole Miss. Stop rambling about Clemson, Brian. LSU and Ole Miss. Today, LSU is going to face the first offense that will fight them this entire season. And I said that, and of course I'm calling out my Tigers here. They have not faced an offense that will go head-to-head with them and say, hey, we're not scared of you. Today they will. And it'll be interesting to see how they respond, how LSU responds. So, Ole Miss, forgive me, Ole Miss fans. Ole Miss is a 2.5-point favorite in Oxford. So basically, this is a toss-up. Anyone could win this game. Right now, I would say, obviously, if Ole Miss wins this game, it's going to be seen as an upset. to me, I'm about to the point I don't want even preseason rankings now. I don't want rankings until about week 7, week 8. That's the only time I care. We should really care about rankings. The older and older I get, and the more and more crap I see. Yeah. Anyway, that will be a really good game to catch. 3:30 today. You have Auburn traveling to Texas A&M. Auburn's 3-1 after their loss to Oklahoma last week. They're 0-1 in the SEC. Jackson Arnold was sacked 10 times. No, the video did not glitch out. Brent Venables' defense sacked his former quarterback, now Auburn quarterback, Jackson Arnold, 10 times. See, my mouth wanted to say something else because it's just like 10 times. That would never happen, and it happened last week. Playing Texas A&M. I believe Marcel Reed is healthy. 869 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. A&M's a 6.5-point favorite, 3:30 on ESPN. You know, the game for me is consistency with Texas A&M. Elko's in his second year, and Elko can coach, folks. As long as he stays relevant, people ask me, well, if Dabo left tomorrow, I'm not advocating for him to be fired. Who would you want to come coach at Clemson? I would entertain Mike Elko. I mean, he's outcoached Clemson before. Maybe that's a bad judgment, a benchmark. So Texas A&M, they were off last week. So they had a bye after the win at Notre Dame by 1 point. They come into this game, I think, definitely overranked. You need to learn more. We need to learn more about A&M playing Auburn 3:30 today. The big key is consistency. Because if you can win this game, you have Mississippi State up next. Jeff Lebby has his team rolling in year 2. And they're playing Tennessee. We'll get to that in just a second. Then they have Florida, Arkansas. Those are not easy games. Then you play at LSU, at Missouri, South Carolina, Samford, and then at Texas. Consistency right here. This is a game that you have to focus on consistency. And that's just the key for Mike Elko and his team. Let's talk about Indiana, excuse me, going into Iowa to play them. And, I mean, this is a really interesting game, especially after that big blowout that we saw. Kirk Cignetti and the boys. Right now, they're ranked number 11 in the country. Indiana is an 8.5-point favorite coming into this game for with a team that, they're playing Iowa, and Iowa is just Iowa's Iowa. I mean, it's just kind of boring football, and I think that Indiana can definitely win this ball game. I think they can definitely win this ball game. But to me, this will be a really good test if Indiana if they'll focus on this game and not get too emotional after last week's just thrashing of Illinois. Because after this, they're at Oregon, Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland. So it's not an easy stretch. Then they're at Penn State, Wisconsin, and Purdue. The big thing for me, if I'm Indiana, is just win today, make next week or when they play Oregon competitive, and then win all the way up to Penn State. Let's just say they lose to Penn State and Oregon. That's another 10-win season for them. And keep those games competitive. They should already erect a statue to Cignetti. It'll be an interesting game. That game will be on Peacock Network. I can't say it for some reason. 4:15 today on the SEC Network. You have Tennessee at Mississippi State. I previewed this game on another college football podcast. And here's the truth about this game. You have two very offensive-minded head coaches going head-to-head. You have Jeff Lebby, who was the offensive coordinator for Josh Heupel when they were together at Central Florida or UCF. And like Josh Heupel, Jeff Lebby took over one of the worst messes in college football that you could just find. Mississippi State was just deflated, just totally deflated. Mississippi State has now won more games than what they did last year. They're 4-0, including a win over Arizona State. And Jeff Lebby's doing a really good job. He's doing a really good job. After today's game, they play at A&M, Florida. They have Texas, Arkansas, Georgia in Starkville, at Missouri, and then, of course, the game against the Egg Bowl against Ole Miss. If I'm Mississippi State, my number one goal is just to limit my turnovers and just don't be scared of Tennessee's defense. Tennessee's team is looking really, really solid. They have a mental block when it comes to Georgia and Florida. They got over the mental block with Alabama. Now Georgia and Florida, they had their shot at Georgia a couple of weeks ago. That game is over. There's still a lot to play for. But don't allow this game against Mississippi State to become a yawner. You're like, Mississippi State, we can beat them. Jeff Lebby would love for you to have that approach. Now, I don't think that's going to happen with Josh Heupel looking across the way going, hey, I was in his position, and I know what this game would mean to me. When Josh Heupel had to go to Oklahoma after his storied past there as a player and then being fired from the very team that he gave so many good years, he sees the moment. He knows what Jeff Lebby is, the opportunity this would be for this Mississippi State team. If they won, they'd be 5-0. You need what, one more win to be bowl eligible from a team that was just won 2 games or something like that last year? I don't have their 24 schedule in front of me, but I think they only won 2 games last year, maybe 3. That's a really interesting game to watch. Now we're moving in to the later hours, 7 o'clock tonight. You have 3-0 Arizona traveling to Ames, Iowa to take on Iowa State. Both teams are undefeated. A lot of people were buying into Roscoe Beck. This morning, I listened to Nick Saban say, hey, this is one of my favorite players in college football. I'm a big, or he didn't say that. He said Roscoe Beck. I'm a Roscoe Beck fan. So I'm sorry. I misspoke there. Forgive me. But if we look at Arizona and Iowa State, this one, compared to the rest of the day, this is a game that really flies under the radar. Because for us Southerners, it's not really exciting. And if you're in the Midwest and you're a big Ohio State fan, in that region, you could care less about this. And I think this will be a sleeper game. I don't think that – I have a friend of mine who graduated Arizona, and he really didn't even talk about this game this weekend. So it may be a sleeper. 7:30, this is when the scoreboard lights up for us college football fans. 7:30 on ABC, Alabama at Georgia. UGA is a 2.5-point favorite. This is big. This is big for both schools. Is like saying that the sun is hot and water is wet. We know this is a massive game. It's an old Southern clash. Alabama and Georgia are playing for 2 totally different goals. That's the word I guess I'm looking for. Kirby's been there, done that. He's won 2 national championships, almost had a 3-peat. Okay? Georgia has a new quarterback, just like Alabama. A quarterback who has flown under the radar in all the preseason hype when all we could hear about was Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier. And then the new quarterbacks like Arch Manning, Ty Simpson, Julian Sayin up at Ohio State. Gunnar Stockton's just been flying under the radar. Yeah. And that's worked in his favor. He's got his dogs 3-0. Georgia is playing for extending the dynasty. Alabama, especially after a loss to a team who just lost to Virginia last night. By the way, I've never seen a field storm so fast in my life. I know they don't have the barrier at the end of the field, and that's the reason why it happened. But it was like a tsunami. Anyway, hope Squirrel White's okay. I think he got trampled last night. That's what at least I've heard. That I don't know. Maybe he's fine. But Alabama is playing for this game to try to correct the season. And in DeBoer's second season, he's trying his very best just to pull it together and not look like a failure after having to follow up or, fill the shoes, of Nick Saban, which, by the way, no one's going to do that. Playing for two very different reasons, different causes, different goals. That UGA, a team who hasn't lost at home in 5 seasons or something like that, they're only a 2.5-point favorite. You should go see the ticket for that game. In fact, the ticket for the Oregon-Penn State game is way more expensive. Now, I know that's 3 versus 6. Georgia is 17 versus 5, that game, but it's very interesting. I don't know if I skipped Oregon versus Penn State. I think I did. Y'all forgive me if I did. Oregon at Penn State, 7:30 on NBC. I love NBC's production. They do such a good on production. I don't know what it is, but I love it. Penn State is a 3.5-point favorite in this game. And I'm going to come down. I'm going to bring it all the way down to this. You know me, I believe in history. And just like I said to Virginia fans who wanted to let me know, hey, you're overlooking us. Everybody overlooks us. I don't mean this rude. I swear I don't, but I have to say it. Why should we be paying attention to you? Out of all of college football, you garner attention by being successful or by being really bad. Or in Clemson's case, underachieving. So there's really 2 types of press, good and bad. And Virginia was so bad they wasn't even garnering any of that. And after they won last night, now people are paying attention, going, all right, how are they going to respond to this moment? I'll let Virginia decide that. I won't. We'll see if it's too big for them. Personally, I think it is. But I just said I wouldn't decide it. But we'll see. We'll see. Prove me wrong. That's all you can do. And that's the same with James Franklin. James Franklin has a good football team, a really good football team. He has Jim Knowles calling defense for him. But I'm going to tell you right now, that man historically, see, here I'm going back to history. Historically, if they're a top 10 football team, they're going to beat Penn State any day, almost every day. Well, that's history and that's different years, and those teams are not playing today. You're 100% right. But you forget that coaching matters. Clemson, South Carolina is finding out very, very, they're finding it out the hard way. When the coaching staff at Clemson that got them the 6 consecutive playoffs and the 2 national championships out of 3 years. Yeah, that coaching staff basically I think there's maybe, counting Sweeney, I think there's 2 people from that coaching staff left on the entire coaching staff. And it's been that way for about 4 or 5 years. Go look at the timeline of when Clemson started doing this. Couldn't win a top 10 game. Clemson can't win. Hasn't beat a top 10 SEC school since 2019. I think that's the stat. Yeah. Penn State, James Franklin, if he wins today, this will be an anomaly in his tenure at Penn State. So if he goes out and wins tonight, you can come back in here and go, I told you so, and you should have believed in us. Why? Because history says I shouldn't. Dan Lanning can coach. And I believe in history. Always go with history. You'll win more times than others. William Switzer, Ole Miss or LSU? Who you got? It's a top toss up. But I'm going with I'm going to go with LSU. I don't want to, but I'm going to go with LSU. But if Brian Kelly loses this game today, you watch LSU fans turn on him. It will be. They claim that they're thrilled with his coaching, and I'm not taking a shot at Brian Kelly. He's been wildly successful overall, and he's made a lot of money coaching a game. So the guy's won, right? I don't think he's a good fit for LSU. It never really made sense, that hire. But he could have went so many other places. I think that he would have had less pressure and had solid success. But the LSU fan, you watch him lose this game today. Watch LSU fans turn on him quicker than a rattlesnake. It's kind of funny. It's not, but it is. Sam Levitt is better than Cade. I'd probably say so, unfortunately. Love Cade, but he has missed so many wide open passes that a guy in his places just shouldn't be missing. All right, let's go back to this. We only got a few more games, and I'm going to go. BYU and Colorado getting together tonight, 10:15. Yeah. If you go to church tomorrow morning and your church has 2 services, you'll probably want to go to the late one if you watch this one. 10:15 ESPN, BYU at Colorado. BYU's a 6.5-point favorite. They lost a lot of experience over the past year. Of course, everyone knows that their quarterback ended up walking on at Tulane after the offseason stuff that went on. And even prior to that, they lost a lot of the team from last year, from what I can remember, except for their incredible running back, LJ Martin. The last time these two teams played was in the bowl game. And was in the bowl game this past season, and BYU beat the color out of Colorado's jersey, and no, Colorado Stars did not sit out. And the announcers could not help but just praise Colorado. Oh, look at the way that Sanders threw that pass for the touchdown. Look at that. Dude, they're down by 30. And I had a Colorado fan go say in a forum, with the reason they were salivating over them is because some of the Colorado talent was projected first round. That's why they were salivating. That doesn't make sense. What if they were first round talent? Why were they losing by 30? The question should be, why is first round talent losing by 30 to BYU? BYU was a good football team, but by everything that was just shoved down our throat week after week about Colorado, just like a hose pipe shoved down our throat and turned on high. It just so inflated. It's such inflated, I just lost the word there. You just couldn't go anywhere without hearing about how great they were. And yes, they were much improved, but BYU beat the crap out of them. Now BYU comes in today, 3-0 against a 2-2 Colorado team. BYU's a 6.5-point favorite. It's really anyone's game. But I believe that the coach's name, if I'm pronouncing this correct, for BYU, Kalani Sitake. Kalani Sitake's been around for a while. And he's been through some good seasons, and he has been through some bad seasons, right? He's been the head coach there since, I think, and I'm going to look this up, 2015 is what I'm thinking. Yeah, he's been the head coach from 2016, I think, to now. And he's went through some tough times there. He's went through some tough times back in, Back in 2016, when he took over, he's 9-4. Then he was 4-9. Then he was 7-6, 7-6. He was 11-1 in 2020, 10-3 in 21, 8-5 in 22, 5-7 in 2023. And then boom, last year he was 11-2. And now he's 3-0. This guy's been through it. He's been through some really, really tough times. And BYU stuck with him. I think that he will get this done today. I think that Satake could be just his coaching and what he does. I think that will be the difference today in this Colorado game. Get to the comment section, then I'm out of here. Ole Miss or LSU? Yes, I've already. Let me see. I don't think Penn State going to win. LSU should win by 2 to 3 scores. We'll see what BK is made of today. Maybe so. And I got Hudson in here saying, hi, Brian. It's good to see you. Hudson. Well, folks, I'm going to let you go. Go check out my other channel. Subscribe. It's free. Pass it along on your forums, on Facebook, whatever you pass it around on. And, of course, if you haven't subscribed to my Clemson channel, I hope you'll do that. Let's talk about Clemson for just a second. Clemson's off this week. They've been off this entire season, but they're off this week. I have people who are saying, oh, we could still go 8-4. We could still go, 9-3 and all of this. And folks, I'm going to say this, like I said about Virginia, like I've said about other teams, and I'm going to say this now. With Clemson, I'm still going to pull for them back in, I think it was 1998 when they were 3-8. I'm going to, that's not the question, but being realistic about your football team and pulling for them is two totally different things. And for me, looking at this football team, this is what I see: a team who has no passion. They have a ton of coaches on the sideline, but they have very little coaching. And the same problem. The reason that they lose games is the same reason basically every week, and none of it is getting changed. Hopefully you're right. Hopefully I'm wrong. Trend says otherwise. Y'all take care of yourself. And as always, go